I decided maybe a couple of coats of clear coat on top of the silver would protect it even more. So that's what we're going to do. The bracket that holds the shadow meter has been cleaned up. It cleaned up pretty good, but there's a lot of plating missing on the backside. So I've got a further plan for that baby. Also, this bracket that goes to the bottom of it that supports the tuner, for some reason that thing is copper. I don't know. It appears to be solid copper, but it really, I don't know. It had a lot of corrosion on it. It wasn't rust, I don't think. I don't know why it's copper. Strangest thing. But I'm going to have to put a magnet on that and find out if there's some real metal underneath that copper. I don't know. It just may be copper clad. Okay, so that pretty much takes care of the bracket, except for what I plan to do later. And we're now down to the shadow meter. And there's a little hatch right here on top of the shadow meter that has a piece of wire holding it. And I don't know if that was the original wire or someone put it in there. It might have been original, I don't know. I don't know why that hatch is there. I just don't know, but there's down in there you can see the little vane that works back and forth. Just like this, just a little piece of vertical metal, and it flips back left, right, and there's a magnet that controls which direction it goes. And you know how, depending on how strong the current is, the needle, I mean the little vane, it's actually a little vane, it's probably no higher than that right there, maybe a quarter of an inch. And the light bulb shines through the rear, through a hole. It's just a hole. And it shines right where that vane is. And the light comes out the front, of course. And that vane will block that light or allow that light to shine. Block it or allow that light to shine through here, which I will see on the dial, dial glass, and it makes it look like you're getting a shadow, I mean, a light on each side. But the fact is, the light is always there. That vane is just blocking it or allowing it to show, blocking it or allowing it to show, depending on how much current goes through these two wires. Piece of cake. All I plan to do as far as cleaning the shadow meter is use the acid brush and alcohol. Nothing more. I want to be real careful, and even then I'm going to go very lightly all the way around it. I want to be real careful with this baby. I got an answer back from Chuck Schwark as to the resistance of the coil inside this shadow meter. And he said the average runs between 1,500 and 2,000. Well, you know, mine's reading 2,450 ohms. I don't want to tear it apart and possibly destroy the mechanism on the inside over 450 ohms. Not going to happen. If I put it back in the radio and it's not exactly working exactly perfectly the way it's supposed to, well, too bad, you know. It should work very close, but it may not be totally, 100% accurate. But, I'm not going to risk damaging this thing to get that little bit of extra perfection. I just don't want to do that. If I had a couple of spares laying around, I might consider it, but this is the only one I have. And, one little slip and there goes your shadow meter. So I'm not going to do it. Sorry about that. Anyway, what we're going to have to do is I got to remove these two wires, which go to the coil. Got to unsolder them. And I also have to unsolder this wire that goes to the light. And you'll notice here, I don't know if you can see that too good, but that was the ground wire right there on the back of the bulb which came out here, and it came around. They soldered it to the side of the casing. Well, over the years that thing has popped loose, as you can see. So I'm going to come up with a different arrangement on that. I'll probably run a wire on down and secure it down here and get my ground there. I'm not going to heat this thing up real hot and try to get it to solder up. I don't think that would work too well. All the wires are off. We can get rid of all this junk, and the contacts have been cleaned up. Now we have to make a repair to it, because you'll recall that the guy who shipped it did a really pathetic job of packing. The last bit of damage I have to repair with this shadow meter is the cover that goes over the top of the two connections on the rear. And I think that one side is solid and the other side has kind of a couple of cutouts. I think it goes like this, with the solid side up, like so, but I'm not for sure. Right now I have to straighten out these ears on it. You'll notice that they're all mangled and bent, caused by the guy who failed to pack properly. I'm just glad he didn't damage the entire shadow meter. And this little cover, being a protector for those wires, has a piece of cardboard inside of it. So you have to make sure that cardboard is there. And we have another heat shrink application. Turns out that the shadow meter cover, the wire holes, I believe, that the wires go through, or the holes that the wires go through for the coil, should be up. And the reason it should be up is so they don't come down. If it was at the bottom, it would come down and be too close to that dial bulb. So whether or not that's the way it's supposed to be, that's the way it's going to be on this radio. I don't want those wires anywhere near that bulb. So they'll come out the top, come over to the side, and go on down through the chassis to where they're supposed to be, and later on I'll hook up this grounding wire. So I think, for all intents and purposes, we can now call this shadow meter complete. I'm sitting here today listening to my Heathkit AR2. I've got the old conspiracy theorist Alex Jones on there. I'll tell you, that guy's a piece of work. Anyway.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right, Alex. You're absolutely right. And the thing about it is, people refuse to believe it. People refuse to wake up. I try to tell people and inform them all the time.
Pretty good sounding little radio, actually. You know, when I got it, it wasn't so hot, but I traded another radio for it. Plays great. I like hauling it to and from work. Easy to set up, easy to put back in the car, lightweight. Well, I've got the antenna running out the window there.
Let's arrest people for their speech like England's doing in Canada. Listen, we sent a film.
Old Jones thinks every one of us is going to be arrested tomorrow, the entire population of the United States, and put in some kind of a prison. I have remounted the tuner onto the chassis. There were 3 wires down below there. I don't know if you can see them. Those white wires go down below. And the 3 grounding wires, one here, one there, and one there. So the tuner has to be put back on. It has rubber mounts that I'll have to install later. And the next thing I'll do once I get this all anchored down is before I put the shadow meter back on, I'll go ahead and put our power transformer back in and a couple other pieces and parts that I managed to collect. The way this tuner is mounted back in, these rubber things and these metal inserts come up from underneath, and then there's a screw that goes up through the center. And you can see there's a little ridge, a smaller ridge on the top part that fits in this hole right here. There's 3 of these, one here, one there, and one in the back rear corner on the other side over there. And there was a washer that sat on top that went between this bracket right here, this mounting bracket, and slipped over the top of that collar, or that insert, like that. And it would, you know, be a shock mount for the tuner. Well, you know, these things are shot. They're like rock. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use good old faucet washers. They work great as little bushings. You can pick them up at Lowe's or a dime a dozen. The only thing you have to do is drill out the center hole a little larger so it'll fit over this insert. Nothing to it.